Alrighty, folks. Sorry for the delay and the hold up here. I had to resend the link out, change devices as well. So hopefully we'll have Alan on here in just a minute. So I apologize for the delay and the technical difficulties on my part. Was attempting to use an iPad instead of my phone here, and didn't have the luck that I wanted here. So we'll see if Alan be on here in just 1 minute. And bear with me. This is my first time actually doing a live on my channel. So part of the hiccups, I guess this will be. Let me check and see if he's got the message as of yet. Give me a second here. All righty, let's see here. It's in. Well, it's far more challenging than I thought it would be here. Very interesting challenge. There we go. Yay. Here we are. He's coming. Wow.
Hello,
Jesus Christ, man. I tell you what.
technology. We're too old for this.
Oh, I know, man. No, I'm quite annoyed now that I had to realize that I had a serious challenge with using the iPad, and I was really looking forward to using it because it has a very good camera. But nonetheless, here we are.
We got there in the end.
This adds more to the conversation, actually. Yeah. So there we go. That's how I look at it. It was destined to happen this way. So, hello, Alan. Welcome to my channel. You're the first one. You're the first one to get an interview on this sucker here,
That's
man.
live, yeah. That's
Yeah, yes,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief introduction. We have today with us a fellow Tai Chi practitioner, Alan Wycherley. Did I pronounce that last name correctly?
Wycherley.
Wycherley. All right, I was
Wycherley,
close.
yeah.
Wycherley. Excellent, excellent. Welcome, Alan. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining me.
yeah,
Yeah,
great to
so
be here.
since we already have a delay, I just want to go ahead and dive in. And what I really want to kind of pick your brain about and kind of get some information about is, first of all, you know, what led you first of all into martial arts overall, and then what got you onto your path and your introduction with it to Tai Chi. And take me from the days of the short hair action man, Alan, taking us to where we are
Long
today.
hair hippie, yeah. Well, so Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people our kind of age, it was Bruce Lee that got me into martial arts.
Right
You
on.
know, I from a very early, it's ridiculously early age. Like some of my first memories are like watching Bruce Lee like snapping people's necks with nunchucks and things, you know. And from there, Shaw Brothers movies,
Right
and
on.
then so I think I went to a couple of judo lessons. I'm like, that's how can you're not ripping people's hearts out in judo, are you? So um, I was desperate to do karate lessons, but like my parents like didn't have a lot of money, not a lot of free change, and karate lessons are expensive.
We were
And
indeed. Yeah.
so yeah, I was just a martial arts fanatic. I'd read anything I could, like Combat Magazine, back when magazines were a thing. You know, like
Yeah.
all these photos of people with fists out and blocking, and like I'd
Yeah.
try and teach myself stuff. And then in high school, I got to be friends with a guy whose parents were from Hong Kong, and they did Back Mei Kung Fu. I don't know if you've heard of that white eyebrow Kung Fu.
Oh
It's
yes, yes,
kind
yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
Back man.
family system, and from him, I learned all about the different styles of kung fu, and all of a sudden, the Shaw Brothers movies took on a whole different dimension when you start to see, you know, the mantis and the crane, and you're like, oh wow, it's all coming to life now. And then because he was Chinese background, there's no way I could have learned from him. But then
Right.
I found out there was a kung fu teacher in my hometown, and the lessons were only like I think they were £2 for kids.
Oh
So
wow.
it was like, yeah, so it's like, well, I can afford that. So I went along and I was expecting a wizened old Chinese guy,
Yeah.
and it was like a white dude, like little tiny white dude called Keith Roost, who he unfortunately passed away this year. But he was teaching a style called Feng Sao Kung Fu, which I kind of think is a made up system now. Like there's a Chinese dude called Chi Su that was the guy that brought it to the UK, you know, and I think he just took a load of different martial arts classes and kind of
Created his own.
saw the way the winds were going, you know, like with Bruce Lee and everything, and designed his own sort of kung fu system. And it was quite a good system, but as part of that, before that he'd teach a Tai Chi class, and
Yeah.
if you did both of them together, you could do two classes for £3. And
Wow.
yeah, so
Bargain.
yeah, it was an absolute bargain when you think about it. And so I just did it because it was there. There was no fighting. There was
Yeah.
no like sort of applications in the Tai Chi. But while I'm waving my hands around, I felt like I was in a Shaw Brothers movie, you know.
Right on.
So yeah, and then he being a big into a lifetime martial artist, like came across Dan Doherty's practical Wudang Tai Chi system, and so he just went full bore into that, and I went
What
along with
area was
him.
this? Where area are you from?
So I mean, originally I was born in Liverpool, but I've lived in Norfolk most of my life.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like about an hour north of or northeast of London,
Right. Right.
and yeah, so we'd travel down to seminars. Like Dan used to run monthly, like sort of 4 hour seminars, and
How old
we
were
go
you
along.
about this time?
What was that?
How old were you about this time?
How old? Oh yeah, I didn't mention that, did I? So I was like 14 when
Oh,
I was
okay.
doing this. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I was just it's like I've been unleashed. You know, this is what I've wanted to do my whole life, and I think had I done martial arts as a child, I probably would have got bored of it. But
Ah,
I
I see.
think because I wanted it for so long, and I was at that borderline, getting into adolescence, childhood, going into teenage years, it was I lived and breathed it. You know, I was practicing
Nice.
for hours at home. All the other kids in the class were sort of messing around. I was like wanting to know more, like asking like Keith questions after the class, and I've got a reputation for being a bit of a teacher's pet in it. But I mean, I
Yes.
didn't care. Like, I want this is what I want to do, And
Uh,
yeah, and, for me, the turning point with Tai Chi was Dan Doherty did demonstration at one of these Oxford events, and someone was doing the form while he was doing the applications, and I was like, well, this don't look like any Shaw Brothers movie. This looks like fighting, you know. and I sort of shied away from the kung fu side and pushed ever more towards the Tai Chi after that.
Okay. So when you kind of stumbled into that, had you heard? I know you mentioned what you got from Keith Bruce. Did you have any other kind of inkling of what Tai Chi was when you first kind of got
Yeah,
into dance?
but my view of it was old people in the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Tai Chi, and when I first started, there was nothing that suggested it was otherwise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was just us waving our arms around and doing a little bit of partner work, but there was no try and punch me in the head or let's put gloves on or any of this.
So
That only.
how detailed was it? Were there things like did you have like the breathing principles? Did you have like any of the positional kind of like detailed stuff, or what was it like in that regard?
Well, so again, the first style of Tai Chi I learned, I think, was also made up. Like
Yeah.
it was called Lee style.
Yes, I
Nobody's
remember him from in there in England. Yeah, there's a lot of.
and it was so it was postures that looked kind of like Tai Chi postures,
Yeah.
but not at the same time, and so a lot of it was just the form we were doing, and then as Keith was learning more from Dan, he'd introduce like the different pushing hands sort of exercises and the 7-star step and the 9 palace step, and then gradually
Right.
the form
Right.
morphed into Dan's like practical Wudang, which for anyone who doesn't know Dan Doherty's practical Wudang Tai Chi, it was kind of like the lineage of it. At some point, the lineage holder of Wudang Tai Chi Chuan, like he was taught Yang style and Wu, and he kind of mixed the two together.
And created. So now,
Yeah.
so this predates Ching Ting Hung, correct?
Yeah. That Qin Ting Han, it was already a fully formed system when he got hold of the lineage of it. Yeah.
Okay, so when you're introduced like now you see like, oh crap, there's fighting in this stuff, right? And like now I want to dive into it. So what became kind of your regiment? Like what were you guys? You don't have to, divulge any secrets per se, but I know you mentioned the partner work. I know you mentioned how you guys start to get more into the pushing hands stuff like that. But like so like, what's it like the progression throughout a class session, if you will? What was the kind of the focus point?
So if you went to Dan's class, like his 4-hour seminars, so you'd all start off doing the same thing. You'd warm up, you'd do some like bow down, look up, some like 7-star step or 9 power step. You ease into it. Then you'd do a bit of form work. And probably like about 2 hours in, he would then divide the class up into like the fighters half and like the normal Tai Chi half. And so the fighters half would go off when we do like strength and conditioning stuff, like looking back at it now, it's like, of course, that's what you do. If you want to fight, you need to say
Yeah.
you'd be doing like non-stop rolls round and round the
Oh,
outside of
nice.
the class. And as you do it, people would be dropping out, people would be like, yeah. And I'd always be proud of the fact that I would go the course. Like I would be absolutely exhausted, feeling sick in it, but I would go the course. And then we do punching with weights, like running thunder punches. So you just go at, you'd have like these like weights in your hand, and you do that for 20 minutes, and it's the longest 20 minutes you've ever had in your life, especially when Dan would then come out and put his hand up as a target. You'd have to really stretch, and your arms are already on fire at this point. And then you'd end, like people would drop out, and then there'd be sort of like about 5 or 6 of us at the end of all of this who would then put gloves on and spar. And that's the secret at the end of the day. The secret to
Right on.
learning how to fight is to actually, put gloves on and hit each other in the face.
And that's what I was going to ask you because you said like about the times like five of you are remaining. What were the numbers like in his classes or in those classes in that
Well,
time frame?
I mean, he must have earned an absolute fortune because you got to think like this is back in the mid-90s when I first started, and you were paying £20 a lesson. Like, so it
Yeah,
was a 4-hour lesson. You were getting your money's worth,
right
but
on.
there must have been, I'd say, 50 plus people at these
Wow, that's great.
events. Yeah, yeah, and that's month after month, and sometimes more. Never less than that, I'd say. There was a lot of people because he used to rent the. Well, there was a place in Crystal Palace. I only went there a couple of times, and then he moved it to the Tokai. It's a judo place near
Okay,
Tower Bridge,
yeah.
and so that's like a big like venue. There was a lot of people, and but yeah, the people interested in fighting weren't that many at the end of it.
Oh, right. Okay. I got you. Yes, those numbers were small.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I missed out. I would have loved it, like, had I been, I don't know, another 10 years older, I probably would have got Dan at his peak in terms of him preparing other fighters, like
I see. I got you. I got
people
you.
like
Yeah.
Godfrey Dornley and,
Mm,
when he
never
first
got.
came to the UK, because Godfrey always said, like, Dan mellowed as his class sizes increased, the way he
He kind
taught
of. Yeah.
mellowed
Yeah.
down, yeah, because you don't want to scare those people away. And that was when I kind of deviated, like I kind of went off more towards Godfrey. Like Godfrey was still at this phase where he was very much a bit of a bastard.
Ah,
He-
yes, yes.
you know, he'd make you do like the short form, but it would last like for an hour. Like he'd make your whole postures. He'd walk around and correct your postures. And it was like something out of a Shaw Brothers movie. Your arms were shaking, you were sweating, it hurt. I did not enjoy those lessons, but what I enjoyed, obviously, was the progress I then made from those lessons.
Good. And so, like, you know, very non-typical in a Tai Chi class. There's not a lot of, particular sparring, if you will. But how did you guys engage with that in your classes?
Well, again, I missed out. I think I missed that because Dan didn't have that much input. Occasionally, he'd come over and he'd kind of like offer some sort of guidance, but it pretty much was, we'd learn applications and things, and then it was put gloves on and now try and do it for real. And it was just experimentation, doing the principles that we've. I mean, it's what I love about Tai Chi. It's people go, that's not a Tai Chi move, that's not a Tai Chi move. It's like, if it's got Peng in it, if it's got Lu, if it's got Ji, if it's got, like, go for all of these, the powers, the footwork, if it's got that in it, it's Tai Chi. And so we just experiment and, yeah, hit each other, take each other down, and occasionally, like I say, Dan would come over and go, yeah, stop, this, you're doing this wrong, or you did. And I think I've mentioned it a few times. Like Dan predated the calf kick by a good like 15 years. Like he was
Yeah.
teaching us to do the calf kick. Yeah, it was about 15 years before it became popular in MMA. So
Nice, nice.
he was onto some stuff. He knew what he was doing. And for those that don't know, Dan Dockett, he was a Southeast Asian full contact champion.
Right on. Yeah.
Like heavy weight. And when people say, well, Tai Chi can't fight, it's like, watch the little limited footage of him knocking people out, and you'll see that Tai Chi
Yeah.
can be used to fight.
Yeah, because he was also a police officer out there, right? Is that what he was?
Yeah, with the Hong
Up
Kong
there?
police force. Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm pretty sure he had practical experience outside the ring. Because a lot of
Oh
the flack,
yeah.
and we'll get to that here in just a little bit, is that us fighters in the ring is like, oh, that doesn't work in the streets, and then we hear that ad nauseum about how there's no translation between going from that to fighting in like they call it a true self defense type environment. But I think they translate well. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that really annoys me because again, I grew up in the 90s in a small town where people were obsessed with one-on-one fights. You know, if you went to a pub back in the 90s, you would see a fight at some point, you know, like, and it'd be two people going outside, swinging at each other. And it was only towards the end of the 90s it kind of transitioned away. It's funny how fads, you know, you get fashion even in street fights. Yeah, it started
Yeah,
to go away from single combat to like groups of people swinging at
yeah,
each other.
right on.
It was weird to see that transition happen. But yeah, I mean, and I got into a few scrapes myself, like, at that time, and I have to say, you know, people, "Oh, yeah, in the streets, it's different." It is different. It was a hell of a lot easier fighting somebody that had no idea how to
Those
fight
skills,
than
right?
it did yeah, than it did getting in a ring with someone who'd prepared, who was matched to you, to be at your level, and, yeah, it's crazy when people go, "Yeah, on the streets, it's different." Yeah, it should be easier. Like, if I mean, I worked the doors as well as a early noughties. I worked as a doorman for a while, and the same sort of thing. You know, you're dealing with drunk people. You get that
Yeah,
often. You get people go, "I work the doors. I know all about violence," and it's like, well, most of the time you're dealing with drunk people. You've got a couple of people with you to back you up. Like, I worked for about 6 months because I started doing it because the overtime at work dried up. And
okay.
then the overtime came back, and I was like, "Do I want to be earning less money for having people like trying to smash bottles in my face?" No, I gave it up. But in that 6 months, there was only one hairy event, and even then, it wasn't. I didn't have a mark on me, you know. Like, it was
Yes,
a
yes,
group of
yes.
people from Thetford. I worked in a different area because I didn't want like people, you know, I didn't want to be walking around the street and people know me and try to attack me.
Right
And
on,
then
right on.
the one hairy night we had, because I was working in Cambridge, was when a group of people from Thetford went out in Cambridge.
There he is.
But yeah, so yeah, it was for me. My experience was fighting people that don't know how to fight is a lot easier than fighting someone that knows what they're doing.
I second that. I mean, I didn't have a lot. Like, I guess I had a few things that I mentioned before. Like, I was in Leeds area. Well, I lived in Harrogate, but
Rough,
where
yeah,
but Leeds was rowdy, man. And even to, I wouldn't even say a lesser degree, but York had its own, list of characters as well. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
they're pretty rowdy places. And Leeds was weird and the aspect of like around the university is kind of a lot of the stuff that I did with. I was DJing at the time, and also was doing my learning my Tai Chi and stuff like that. And I had a group of my friends who were fellow DJs and into music that started learning from me at the university. So we would hang out after the fact, after we do our little sets and things like that. And that's where I kind of got into a few little kind of interactions with people out there on the street coming from the clubs. That's all
yeah.
riled up and they're ready and up for action. You know what I mean? But just like you said, like you do some of the simplest things, and people they're like, "Oh crap, this dude knows what he's doing." All right, never mind. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. You don't really find there are skillful people out there. And you're going to find the guys who are super aggressive and maybe used to bullying or getting that kind of interaction. You're going to find
Yeah,
that out there because that they get the what do you call it, the I don't know what's the word they use when the alcohol courage, the Dutch courage or whatever they call it. Once you get the alcohol in
Dutch
you and then
courage. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it all comes out of you. You see those characters out there, but generally speaking, they target people, and they're looking for prey. They're looking for what I mean, the person that they know that they could be aggressive with. But going back to your point, when you were using it and realizing that the skills that I've applied in class really works. What was that like in your mindset? You know what I mean? Like, this stuff kind of is pretty
Oh,
practical.
it boosted my ego no end. Like, because one of the reasons I took up martial arts as well, like, it was 90% wanting to be able to do like a spinning back kick, like I'd seen in, but it was also in the back of your head, like, high school was a very difficult time for me, I think. as it is for most people, and all in my own head. Like you always think. I think every kid is so egocentric that they think everybody is observing every last little thing. Always so subconscious or subconscious, always so conscious of what you're doing and people's judgment of you. And
Yes.
it's something I always try to put across to my daughters is honestly, no one cares. Like no one cares what you're doing. No one's paying that much attention to you. Just do what you want to do and get on with it. But
Yeah.
Part of it, there's a lot of fear of like, if I got into a fight with someone, I'd be embarrassed because they beat me up, and so to go from that fear to that power of, oh, actually, I can handle myself was like a big thing, and I think even though I was never a bad person with it, I think I did start. You'd go looking for trouble with people that wanted trouble, so that you could put them in their place, and I never would have started on anyone that didn't want to fight. But if somebody wanted to fight, all of a sudden I wanted to kick off just for, kicking off sake. And it's something young people do. You grow out of it. Well, you hopefully grow out of it, and you realise you're a bit of a idiot for doing it.
Right on. So when did you make that switch? I know you mentioned before in our previous one that you and one of your mates were looking at folks that were competing, and you're like, oh crap, these guys don't know what they're doing. So when you had that switch, it's like, let me give this a go. Was there an alter? First, was there did you alter anything in your training? And then two, give me remind me of your first experience of getting into a competition match where you're actually going to scrap, if you will.
Yeah, so I every year we go to this Oxford Open, that Dan organised, and at the end of it, it was always the highlight of the day. It was the Sand Shoe, it's called. It's now Sandar, isn't it? But
right,
at the time, it was Sand Shoe, and they match people up, give them gloves, like gum shield, head guards that were always falling off,
right,
and they'd like go at it, and I used to, this looks like a pub brawl. This isn't martial arts. I do so much better than this, and I talked with my, main training partner. We were like, this is right. And then one day, I think it was him who said we should enter, and I was like, yeah, we should really. We criticize every year. We should actually give it a go. So we went. We both entered. He dropped out with an injury, and as it got closer to the event, and the main change I did in my training was I wasn't getting enough sparring. Once a month at Dan's wasn't enough, and some months there weren't anybody there that wanted to actually spar. So
right.
Yeah, so I started going to Muay Thai classes just to get the sparring in. Started going to Kyokushin karate classes, and it was interesting because. Again, people, Tai Chi don't work. It wasn't my experience. I'd go to these classes and I'd be up there with the top of what they had at the time. Like in terms of sparring, and I'd shock quite a few people because you tell them that you were from Tai Chi and they'd be sort of giggling to themselves, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, hang on, I've got to switch on with this guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and the main thing I did was bring my own head guard to the competition,
Keep it on.
and it never fell off because it was a decent head guard that fitted properly. And and the actual competition itself, like I'd never been so tired in all my life.
Yeah, the adrenaline and everything.
Because I only did the amateur. I only did one Sanchu fight amateur. So it was a 2-minute rounds. Was it?
Yeah,
I think it was 3 2-minute rounds. I only did 2 rounds as well because back then, if you won 2 rounds, you won. There was no need to go for the third. And I'd never been so tired. Like, all this strength and conditioning, but it's the stress. It's the you don't relax. You're so like at one point I was lying on the floor, and I think I'd have just. I wasn't hurt. I was just tired. And it was only. Keith, God rest his soul, my training partner, God bless him. They were in my corner. They were useless. They didn't offer me any advice. They weren't shouting anything. And in the crowd, I just heard "Get up," and it was Godfrey. And because I was just so terrified of it, I just bounced straight up without even thinking about it, and went on to win the fight. Yeah. So if it hadn't been for Godfrey, I would have lost that fight.
Oh my god, yeah. That's kind of funny because I remember. So the video that I have of mine is my very first match, my very first time going in, and I can say, I definitely had nerves because I wasn't sure how good the guy in front of me was going to be. And I wasn't sure, so I was uncertain because like this is my first time. What's it going to be like? I mean, how good is this guy? He's going to be doing all kind of stuff that I don't expect and everything like that. And then I think there was something that came about once like they go in and all that kind of like really quickly dissipated. And I think for me, I didn't get tired in the match. I think I got more and more excited. Like I was having success. Like, oh crap, stuff is working. Like you know what I mean? Like and I guess the flip side of it, I did have some good direction because I had Dave Nicholson in my corner, and then I had one of my classmates named Paul Render in my corner, and it was almost like kind of humorous because they're giving me some really good stuff. I mean, stuff I probably think I couldn't even do. Like in my mind. You know what I mean? But they were making it so easy. Like in regards of like take them down, do this. You know what I mean? They're giving me instructions and some stuff. Obviously, like I said, I didn't do. But I think my my level of understanding like, oh, this is a cakewalk. I can do this like all the time. I mean, I just do, and I didn't do anything. Like if you look at my matches, I wasn't doing a lot of kicks because I wasn't very good at kicking. I threw a few punches, and that's how I kind of ended the first match. I threw a few punches, but some of those things where I just stuck to what I just came straight out of, was throwing people around and then to get some punches, and so I was in my comfort zone. So, did you feel that you had a lot of tools in your box that you were trying to apply, or did you try to limit it down to like I'm only going to stick to this?
Well, I mean, again, with the same shit, like my strong point is my kicks. Like I have very awkward kicks, and I catch professionals out. I've caught ex UFC fighters out with kicks.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying I beat those ex UFC fighters. They would absolutely decimate me in a fight. But during sparring, I have caught them with kicks, and I know that if I'd have meant it,
Yeah.
it would have hurt. And but I didn't throw any real high kicks because I was so trying to be a Tai Chi fighter,
But
and in Tai Chi there's no high kicks, and it's
yeah.
like that's the only fight I've ever had that I haven't stopped because like I won on points, and I think that's because I didn't
Ah,
throw any high kicks. It was,
I got you. I got you.
yeah. But I mean, what Tai Chi did do, obviously, because I was using like repulse monkey and brush knee twist step to get my points. And in the
That's
end, I
it.
used embrace tiger return to mountain to get my final points that won me the second round, that won the fight. Because if I'd
Awesome.
have had to have gone out for a third round, I'd have probably died. So it, that I think, and that's what I felt about Tai Chi. This is, I mean, MMA existed, the
Yeah.
UFC existed, but it wasn't very well known about. And the
Right
way
on.
I thought about Tai Chi was it had everything. You had strikes, you had grappling. So in my head, it was always, if you're out striking me, I can take you to the ground. If you're out grappling me, I can keep my distance and just keep fighting you. So in my head, Tai Chi was and is to this day. It's the same as MMA. It's fighting. It
Right
contains
on.
everything you need, bar the groundwork basically.
Yeah. So after how long of a gap was it before you did that Central match that you decided to like what, I'm gonna go ahead and throw my hat in the ring in some MMA for real?
Well, I mean, basically, so after that fight, I was psyched, and I was like, right, that's it. This is me now. I'm a Senshu fighter. I'm gonna, and I'm gonna have a few more fights. I'm gonna join the British team. And then I discovered women shortly after that, and it all went out the window. And I think, yeah, two years after that fight, I had a kid already. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so my training went, and I ended up a single dad. I got custody of my girls, and so all my going to London for Tai Chi lessons went right out the window, and I had probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years of just doing a little bit of Tai Chi now and again in the garden, and
Got you.
it just got, my training got less and less and less, and then the girls got a bit older, didn't need me around so much, you know, like they could entertain themselves. Like I always had my mum on hand to babysit and that, and so I thought I was getting fat, you know, like I was getting, even that I feel a bit fat now, but I was fatter then in my early 30s, and I thought I need to do something. So I found there was a class. It was a back May class, and I was like, oh my god, this secret family system that my friend did. There's somebody teaching this, and so I started doing that, and I liked it. I've always been well aware, watching the UFC, that a UFC fighter would destroy like 99.9% of all people doing kung fu. So I went along to this class, not thinking I'm going to learn to fight. I already know how to fight. I've worked the doors. I've fought full contact. I've had street fight. I know how to fight. So I went to this back May class, and I'm watching them train all this cool traditional stuff. But then at the end of the class, you'd get talking, and these people would start saying, you know, where MMA, yeah, it's all right for the ring, but you know, back May is for the streets. And you're like, oh, I can't be around these people. And at that time, coincidentally, there was a fight gym that opened up in my hometown, and it's weird because being from like Thetford, which is a tiny nowhere town, you know, it's a London overspill town. It's it's a nothing town, and all of a sudden you've got a fight gym opens up with Lee Dosky, who you won't have heard of him, but what you would have heard of is the people that he's fought. Like he has a win over Dan Hardy, you know, on his
Oh
record.
wow.
And
Okay.
he always laughs that he discovered Paul Daly's left hook. he got knocked out by Paul Daly, like Paul Daly was like just getting started. And you know, he fought who's who of the British MMA scene, you know, and he's in my hometown, like open up a bloody fight gym, and like on his, you know, like his regular people training at his gym, you had like a former Olympic judoka, you know, Danny Kingston. You're like, what?
Wow.
I get to train with a former Olympic judoka. Like, what? You know, and he'd have people come in because of his reputation. To have people coming from all over. There was oh God, I'm getting old and my memory's gone to pot. But at one point, he was ranked number 2 in the British, you know, K1 event. He was a professional MMA fighter. He used to come down all the time to train because that's how much he respected Lee. You know, we had former world cage warriors champion who used to come and train quite regularly with Lee. You know, like former UFC fighters, because he trained with like Luke Barnett and is it Barry Maguire? Not Barry Maguire, something Maguire. You know, like these people that were in the UFC for a while, and they'd come and train and teach seminars and do stuff. And it's like, this is my home crappy town. So I started training there. And the same thing I was saying, shit, you know, I went to see some people that I was training with fight, and I was like, I want, you know, what's the point in me doing this training if I don't do it myself? And my plan was to always do 3 fights, no matter what, 3 fights, because I always think most people that have one fight and they'll either get beat and it'll dishearten them and they won't fight again, or they win and they go, well, I want to go out on a high, you know. So I was like, 3 fights, and the level I was fighting at was pitiful. It was awful, you know, like, so I had 3 very easy victories, like really easy. And so my plan was then, well, I'm going to keep fighting until I find my level. Like Lee was always saying, you want your Gustafsson moment, you know, like your Gustafsson, John Jones moment, where you have to dig so deep and you think, and you've stood there with the rest decision, like, did you win or did you lose? But you know that you've put your heart and soul into it. And then COVID happened. You know, my last fight was 2019. COVID happened. I was already in my early 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and my fitness levels went down, and I was like, can I be bothered doing this again? I lost my motivation for it, and I never got it
Yeah.
back,
Oh, I
basically.
see.
But
I see.
yeah,
I see. Yeah, that's interesting because you know I think with my, obviously talking about you, but in my relationship to that, we first went in not wanting to do any kind of like true matches like that. First, we're like, oh no, Tai Chi doesn't need to be in the ring. To like, wait a minute, we got something to prove about Tai Chi, right? And that went from doing it at the the Euro World, the Zongdings and stuff like that competitions to
yeah,
getting asked by Ian Armstrong, who was scouting for the pro stand-up stuff they were hosting down at Albert Hall down in London. And he had asked us, and Dave was like, no, we're not doing that stuff. He's not trying to get his brain scattered for a career. And also, it was funny enough because I was in the Air Force at the time, and none of my fights were sanctioned by the Air Force. I was doing it like all under the
oh,
table. Like I wasn't even supposed to be doing it because I got injured or got in trouble. Which I think I got for a knee injury. I did get some telling off of that. Like, how'd you do that? I was in the competition, competing in what? But anyway, um,
I'd have lied. Ooh, hello.
you were like, yeah. So, so then we went to do the pro. It was very interesting because, I think, you have the guys that are there for that's their career and that's what they're going to do, and you
Yeah,
have his, he needs some competitors. So I was one of the competitors, and I had, and I was going to ask you about this because I know you mentioned you had the one fight. So even when I did the Euro World, it was the kind of like the old school round robin. You win a match, you keep going. You win a match, you keep going.
yeah.
Um, were any of yours like that at all? In that regard?
Uh, that would happen at basically because there were so few people that were willing to actually fight at those events in. Did you ever fight at the Oxford events?
I didn't fight the Oxford. I did the Euro World, and I did the one that was
Yeah,
what I don't know. It was Zongding. I don't know who hosted the Zongding competitions. I can't remember
yeah.
who that. But I know the same
The
guys were there.
the Oxford ones, but basically they'd find who was, like people would send the forms in, and then most of those people would drop out before the event happened. So basically,
Yeah,
they'd take you out back, they'd weigh you up, and they'd match you with people. And if there were three people,
Oh, oh,
or or five people who all fit around about the same weight, they'd throw them in, and it'd be a round robin fight. But if you only had one person that matched your weight and like your kind of experience, they'd throw you in together, and you just have one fight. So most of them were just single fights, but occasionally you'd get like a round robin sort of situation. But yeah,
yeah. Because I'm curious. I'm curious how you would have done had you, obviously you won, and then you would have had your next couple of matches, things like that. Mentally how that would have worked on you. Because I the two fights that I have up on my channel, there was an actual fight in the middle, which this is why I'm asking because it reminded me of what you said about the Alexander Gustafsson kind of thing. That second match of mine was like that. It's like, did I win or didn't I
yeah,
win? It's like it was a tougher tussle than my first and my last one, right? And
yeah.
it was like it was that fight. It was like, God, this dude was, and both of us were really, like, oh, we both did really good. Yeah, we did. But we really had to dig deep for that. And I was almost thinking
So
if I. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so was that your favourite fight? Like, is that the fight you look back on with the
Um,
most?
I think what it did for me was gave me a sense of when I'm challenged, I know that I have another portion that I can dig on and not to give up because I
Yeah,
almost felt like it was one of those matches where almost like that I wanted to say, you know what, man, this is too challenging, and then get to the end is like, you know what, I went through that, like this guy wasn't going for all the stuff that I was doing in the first match, and so when I got to
yeah,
the third match, I had no concerns. Remember, I was telling you earlier when I was first apprehensive in the first one. The second one made me question myself. Then I got the win. Then the third one, I had no qualms. Then after
Ooh,
that, I had no qualms anymore after that. So I don't know if it was my favorite because I would say that I felt that I was, challenged more than I wanted to be. But I felt that challenge did a lot more for my character and fighting than any of the other matches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any of the successful ones.
Because I feel like, I mean, that first fight did that for me anyway, because I was so exhausted and I did just kept going. But yeah, all my other fights, like I barely even like got out of breath. You know, it
Yeah.
was yeah, and like I said, and I'm not saying I'm brilliant. Don't
No, I,
don't
yeah,
take
I
that
get
from me.
you.
I was a very amateurish fighter, but I was fighting even more amateurish people. I guess you know it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like you said, I after I had those, you know, a couple of knockouts and things, I was getting emails and messages from fight fight people say, you know, come and fight at our show, come and fight at our, and it's like, do you think my 41-year-old ass is getting dragged halfway across the country to fight some guy you obviously is aiming to go to like Cage Warriors and the UFC? You know, like no,
Right,
I don't want to be
right.
on somebody else's highlight reel.
Yeah, because it's funny because mine, the one that did Albert Hall, my first match was good. It was actually a bigger guy. I have some pictures of that. I don't actually have any videos. But then we were aiming to fight who was the champion, who was a guy from Romania, who,
Yeah.
like, after the fact, it's funny because I had a classmate of mine, his name was Barry Hornsby. He had watched it. It was on Eurosport. I don't know if you remember Eurosport from back in the
Yeah, I
day.
remember Eurosport.
Yeah, so our match was on Eurosport, but it was only just a highlight. And so after the fight, he goes, I was watching the kind of like the promo of the fight, and I was like, oh, Mike's gonna get killed because they had a promo of the guy kicking the bag, and he was like, pow, pow. Which I didn't see him. I saw him backstage as we were all back there together in one
Yeah,
room, all the fighters, but he wasn't doing any training. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm totally oblivious to what this guy's skill set was. So right, I get in there and he's stuffing all my takedowns and he's hitting me with punches and things like that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, nothing's working on this dude. Not like the first guy I just went against. But he's already, we're the competitors for his record, if you will. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But the experience, and I think sometimes I know you really didn't speak on that because maybe you didn't have any, but having losses sometimes teach you far more than what it does even having your successful wins. You know what I mean? Because it then informs you on where you're lacking and what you're missing out on. But maybe you didn't have it in your matches, but when did you realize that like there were some things maybe that you didn't have in your Tai Chi training that you had to pick out from somewhere else?
Well, I mean that first fight, I realised, fighting in the ring is just you've got to prepare for it properly. You know, me doing like the bare minimum sort of strength and conditioning training that I was doing. Yeah, I had classes. I was going to. I probably had 5 classes a week. I was going to,
Oh, nice.
and
Okay.
and then about 2, 3 times a week, I was going out for like a 1.5 mile run. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that ain't enough. You know, you got to be serious about the sort of conditioning you're doing if you're going to be fighting. And I'm trying to bring it back because I stopped training at the fight gym about February before last, so it's come up to nearly 2 years. I haven't,
Oh
uh,
wow.
yeah, I haven't done any like proper full on, sparring and type stuff, and I'm getting out of shape. I know I have, I can feel it. It's like, and I don't. I know I'm never going to get back to 85 kilos like I was when I was fighting. Those days are long gone, but I kind of want to know that if I have to use my martial arts, I'm going to be able to. And there's, that adrenaline spike when it hits you takes all your energy. Like
Oh
when it's unexpected.
yes.
Like it's one thing to know you're going to fight and to go into it, but like that video where I went and met that guy, there was a moment where I just kind of did a little bit of a, like I went in to show closing the distance and then come out to, and I was like. Afterwards, and I was hiding it. I don't think it comes across in the video, but like, I was like, fucking hell, like that was about 5 seconds of not even full intensity, like stuff, and I am blowing out of my ass right now. I'm like, I need to get back to the gym and get some fitness back in me, because if I ever have to fight someone for real, I'm going to embarrass myself.
Well, two notes on that, right? So the first thing I'll ask is a question about your is there any Tai Chi around you, and then how much in contact do you keep up with your practical Tai Chi, kind of like overall classmates, if you will?
Well, I mean, I only keep in touch with one of the guys. We started round about the same time, and he's a hairdresser, and my daughter works for him. So
So,
I kind of I've kept in touch with him through the years,
yeah.
and but yeah, he still trains on his own, like, but he doesn't go to classes now.
Mhm.
There's Tai Chi in my area. There's a Chen stylist, but she just kind of does form stuff. There's a guy that he does. He teach. I think he teaches around about the Thetford area, the practical Wudang system, but he was never at any level. Even after all the years that I wasn't training in Tai Chi, like I got back into it during COVID lockdown,
Yeah.
and because I had no one to practice with, so I started doing forms again. And
Yeah.
after redoing my form for about a week, I was like, my standard of form is better than his, and he's been teaching for like 20 years, like. So if I could, my aim, I think, is to find a network of people I can train with. Like, we had that meetup the other day, that was really
That was
good.
gonna be my next question. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I'd like to build up a network. Where I could just maybe practice with some people, maybe get a couple of students who might be interested in, like, students is the wrong word, training partners, really. That's what I need. So I can do like
Yeah.
the 2-man sort of training stuff, and maybe do some pushing hands stuff, maybe enter a few pushing hands tournaments. There's a jiu-jitsu gym opening up near me. I'm gonna go start rolling again. That'll be important for my fitness. But yeah, it'd be nice to have some people I could do some Tai Chi stuff with.
And so I know you mentioned about meeting with the other Wing Chun guy, and what you felt out of breath. But obviously, I watched the videos of you guys at the meetup, and you didn't see too out of breath. How did that feel, getting back into that environment with a mix of people and things like that? What was that experience like for you? And what
Yeah,
did you pull?
well, again, it's you fall into this trap when you spar, don't you? Of like, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, like,
Of course.
and even though at the beginning we said we'll go for takedown entries, like, so, but I think in that whole time I was sparring, which was for like well over half an hour, I think I only got into one situation where I could have used the takedown.
Yes,
I
yes.
get too comfortable just doing that pitter patter,
Okay,
your turn,
okay.
my turn, sort of sparring. And I think it takes, you have to really focus on, no, like, that's not what you want to do. You want someone to come in, you want to counter, you want, the way Lee always described it is there's tick-tock sparring, tick-tock, tick-tock. But
Yeah.
what you want to do is, as that person is ticking, you want to tock. So, and it's in the Tai Chi classics, isn't it? You want to be there, like, you want to be
Yeah.
out of range, but you want to be in range. It's that's the ultimate in Tai Chi, and I think when we spar, we get a bit too comfortable with what we're doing, and we forget that we're supposed to invest in loss, aren't we? We're supposed to do things that,
True. True.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's not enough investing in loss.
I try to be creative in mine. And when I typically, because what we'll do, we have like a round robin where we'll do 3 minutes, 1 minute break, and we slide down the line, and we're getting exposed to all different people as we do our. Usually around about at least 3 hours. Send-on meetups that we do in Houston
Yeah,
here and things like that. And welcome, Marshall Geeks. No worries.
hey,
I started.
Tomo's here.
Yeah, I started late as well, so no worries. But yeah. So what I started to find in mine, because we have so many different mix of people and also a mix of styles. Everyone's not coming from the Tai Chi background as well.
Yeah,
So I'm finding that it's allowing me to be kind of find my creativity in the matches, right? Let me see where I can switch my reference to Tai Chi and with this person and this person. And I had the young guy that I like to spar with. His name is Julian because he's so tenacious and like full of energy, and he has a bit of power. He wrestles as well, so he has a good root and
Yeah,
strength,
good.
things like that. But that definitely checks my tank to see how my adrenaline is. But I tend to get tired, obviously, and
Yeah.
and then that's where I really have to rely on my skill sets, right? Now, when you guys were meeting up, did you ever hit that? Because you mentioned it earlier when you were saying when you met with the guy at the wing show. Did you hit that little wall that you like? Wait a minute, okay, I have to.
Well, I do this thing now that I'm older. I used to do it in the MMA class because I'm quite when I'm sparring well, I'm quite an elusive fighter. I like to like be out the way, like in out, like just
Yes, sir.
try and get
Yeah,
the just to miss me by like a fraction, so that because I got usually have the longer reach, I can still
right on.
hit them. Yeah, that's how I like fighting. And so what I do when I get tired, I do this, and I've started telling people my secret, and it's not going to work anymore. But I just kind of stand still and like give them a certain look, and like have my hands drop low, and the other person's like, "Oh, I better not come in. He's planning. He's going to do something. He's going to do something." And all I'm
That's
thinking is, "I really need to catch my breath right now."
Dude, oh my gosh, we got the same secret. If you go back and watch any of the sparring, you'll see when I take that and I'm posing and they don't do anything, and that's me learning doing the exact same thing. I'm trying
Yeah,
to catch my wits about me. Yeah, it's like
psyching them out.
old man tricks.
Virtual high five.
I know. Oh yes, sir. But that is so funny that you say that because you can go back and look at mine and you'll see it. Because what I'll do I'll make a stamp on someone, right? And they'll be aware, oh, like he can do this, that, and the third. But then once I know I have their attention, then I use that to my advantage to catch my breath because I am sucking wind, man. That is too funny, man.
Secrets of the old guys.
So did you find it a benefit of messing around with the different people at the meetup that you guys had? Did you find that you could play around with some of your skill sets with the variety of folks that were there?
Well, to be honest, like I spoke about this after the event with the guys that were there. Like, I think it's weird, like being a content creator and having the sort of negativity that I get from certain people. I
Yeah.
was very, very, and it's the first time I've ever, met these guys. I was very conservative with what I was doing. That whole investing in loss was the absolute opposite of what I was doing. I was basically just jabbing anybody that come near me and not allowing them to really get anything on me. It was very much like I want to show that I can handle this and I can get the better of the exchanges. And I
Sure,
think
sure.
that's quite often the case when you first meet people. You need to sort of hit, let them know what you can do, and then after that, it's like, okay, you're hitting me now, but that's because I'm kind of letting you, rather than
Right, right. Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
You
It's,
don't
it's
want to
so
give people
interesting.
the wrong impression.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When I go to meetups, obviously, we start to meet different characters, get different energies, different way that people express how they're doing their thing. But it definitely builds a camaraderie. And I think usually over time, what happens is that you guys start to expand what you do to each other. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
it's like that's that meet and greet, and it's like the friendly like we're friends, like you start to expand your relationship, but initially you're not sure how everyone's going to take. You don't know, I'm going to keep this guy at bay because I don't know what else he's going to be coming with. And then,
yeah,
as it starts to unfold, you start to get a little bit more exploratory in your engagements, if you will. And I think hopefully you guys continue that, going down that path, if you will. But are you interested? I know you have put a little marker on Igor's little map. So are you going to try to push forward and then it's bringing a whole little group into your area? Or are you going to try to go outwards and just try to go meet with people that that are already kind of doing this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, so again, from that meetup, what I got from some of the guys is that they're trying to put up some inter-club stuff, like so you can get some inter-club sort of competition stuff going, like
Right.
sander stuff, pushing hands sort of stuff. And I said to them, I'd be very interested in helping them out with that. Like, obviously, coming from the background I'm in, I wouldn't want to be doing any of the competing because I think that'd be quite unfair in a lot of ways. To like, oh, you've been sparring for a few months, okay, let's go. But
Yeah.
I'd definitely be interested in helping out. Judging, like reffing, that sort of stuff, and yeah, getting a network up where I can go around and train and spar with different guys would
Yeah.
be awesome. That is my aim, and also with content, like, and I have done. I've been to that meetup. I met a Tai Chi guy recently, and I've met that Wing Chun guy, and that's my main aim at the moment is to meet up with as many people as possible, get a lot of content filmed, and really just my original purpose with the channel is just to highlight traditional martial arts working, to get some more interest in it, to get people to realize that it is a viable option if you want to be able to fight.
Yeah. So,
'Cause
with the name of your title of your page, in defense of traditional martial arts, right? And I know obviously we both get a level of flack for trying to be within our lane of that, trying to represent it, if you will, right? How do you feel that is going from your perspective of what you want as far as your goal? How do you feel that's being received for you? Oh, I think I lost you. Oh no.
am I still on? Someone tried to
There
feed
you
me,
go.
so I think I missed that. But yeah, I'm back. Yeah, so um, originally I thought I was going to have to defend traditional martial artists to kind of MMA, more combat sport type people.
Sure.
But what I found is that even when I was training, if you say, "Oh, I learnt this in Tai Chi," they don't care. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 like like they don't care what you. If it works, it works. So if you've had that technique from Tai Chi, cool. I'm going to use that technique now because it works. You know
Yes.
that I think traditional martial arts mostly need defending from other traditional martial artists because, as you well know, you get this. Well, that's not Tai Chi. That doesn't look like Tai Chi. So you ask how Tai Chi is supposed to look, and they can't show you.
Yes, yes, and that's what's frustrating in that because it, okay, say for instance, what their perspective. Matter of fact, your face is not on the screen right now. Your video is not there, but
Yeah,
the fact of the matter that as a martial artist and represents Tai Chi, you try to get it where we're being a representation of the art, and it seems more like what you just said. That I feel the same. I get more respect outside of my art than I get in the art. I get folks within the art saying that's not this, that's that, that's not going to work this way, that's not going to way. But when I go, train with jujitsu guys, I go train with guys who are doing Muay Thai or karate or whatever, and I use my stuff that I've learned within Tai Chi, that being only my sole art. They're very respectful and like, oh man, that's pretty cool. That's how this works. Show me how you did that, this, that, and the third.
yeah,
But get so much pushback within the own realm of Tai Chi, and then I can't get them to demonstrate or show or really explain exactly how and what they would do it in an environment where I'm not posed up for you. You know what I mean? I'm not like, throwing my arm out there and leaving it out there. Now you can do all your techniques, and
yeah,
I'm not in a pushing hands setup, and you get me into a lot. Now you do all the stuff you're going to do. Let's just move around. How would you show me how you're going to move around? How are you going to show me that this works in the streets? As always, kind of put that way, or in a self-defense mechanism where more than likely a lot of times if you're in that environment you don't really know what's about to happen. It's totally dynamic as opposed to obviously we maybe in a match or anything like, and we're agreed to go into combat, but there's still the dynamics are there because this person have this whole set of tools that they can apply in that moment. um you know when you hear this stuff and I know I've seen your pushback and things like that.
yeah.
What do you think is the best way that you can address that kind of I guess pushback and still push the art forward?
I mean, the best way is to get people to put gloves on and for them to experience it. Especially now we have MMA gloves. You know, like you saw those Venom ones I've got, which are like they're proper eight
Yes, I love
ounce
those.
gloves. No, that's so good. I love them. I wish I'd found them sooner. But they've got really good padding, so you don't feel so bad about punch people. But they've still got enough open to
Yeah.
use your kung fu stuff that I can't use them with gloves. Well, you can because they're open-handed. So I think that the best way to teach people is to go, let's just have a spar and you can see. Like, because
Yeah.
if you can't jab me on the nose, you can't poke me in the eye.
Right.
It's that simple. Like if you can't use your, like cheese sour pushing hands because I've took your back and I've like uh, you know, suplexed you into the ground. Like, that's not working in the street either. And the biggest learning experience for me was sparring Lee for the first time. I always knew, like I said, I wasn't an idiot. I always knew that a pro MMA fighter was going to kick my ass. But I was like, I've worked the doors, I've had street fights, I've been doing Tai Chi a long time. If
Yeah.
I ever had to fight someone like that, I'd give him such a good fight, he'd never want to fight me again. And then I sparred Lee for the first time, and he'd not long had his, the last of his sort of professional fights, but he was very much switched off from the MMA side of things, and he wiped the floor with me. It wasn't even, it was just not comparable on any level.
Sure.
And to spar someone like that and to realize that, like, that is a dangerous, dangerous man. And people go, oh yeah, but that's high end, high level MMA. It's like, but I know, like, when I go and spar these people, like, they think I'm amazing. They think I'm like next tier. And it's
Yeah.
like, at any MMA class up and down the country, I would be mediocre, and that's
Right.
what I try to put across to these people. It's like, if I am hitting you at will, if I am taking you down when I want to, like, because they'll go, "You're only a mediocre fighter." I'm like, "Yes," and that's why it highlights how bad the Chinese martial arts scene is,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I'm a 45-year-old Tai Chi guy that would walk all over you, in a fight, in a sparring session, anything you want to do, I would destroy you. It's like, so if that's me, the mediocre amateur MMA fighter, how do you think a young 25-year-old who's like training 5 days a week, doing jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, MMA, how do you think you're going to do against someone like that? I'll poke him in the eye. You ain't getting anywhere near him to poke him in the eye. You're waking up on the floor. That's what's happening in that
Yeah, spot
situation.
on. That's why we obviously we see all these, particularly on the fight commentary breakdown, like yours was posted on as well. But we see that where you see these traditional, quote unquote martial artists go in there against, sometimes a 1 year practitioner of MMA or kickboxing or whatever, and we see the results, and we see how the delusion comes to a halt. Well, maybe it doesn't come to a halt. They still have it because they make excuses after the fact. But we see how it gets played out. And even for me, like you said, I have no delusions about what my skill level is. I get accolades among the people that I practice with, but I know I can't walk into an environment. I go roll with folks that been doing jujitsu. Like blue belt, brown belt. I still got loads of video I need to post, and got that I roll with these folks, and I get out of some of their movements. Luckily, sometimes, but then I end up getting tapped. What I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
More regularly than not. You know what I mean? So I'm fully aware, but what I'm doing it for is for my own benefit, for my own sense of understanding of what it's like. And like you mentioned earlier, I always feel that I have more luck out in public than I do against another skilled person, because they've been working on their skills, they've been working on their timing, they've been working on different scenarios that come about. Where out in the street, where I'm always got my head on a swivel, I'm looking how people are behaving, and I feel like my success level is a lot higher than someone who's really prepared, who's trained their body, who's got and I see it even in my send-down meetups when I'm going with folks who, like, I'm a hobbyist at best right now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I don't do this. I don't have a school. You know what I mean? And the students that I get that come to me, I'm showing them what I know. I'm not going to learn from other folks, if you will, in that regard to, hone my skills to a higher level. I do that when I'm trying to refine my skills when I'm training with other folks. But when I see folks talking about the abilities of the art and what they can do with the art outside of training it for that, then I fully know that I shouldn't really necessarily give this person a lot of weight when they're talking about what I do and they're trying to disregard my level of training or my level of skill. So I kind of push that to the side. But one of the things I wanted to say about what I saw, and like-minded with you in your defense of traditional martial art was we're trying to bring a sense about a reality of what the art means and then where it stands currently at the moment. And I had this question about Damon Bramich the other day, and I'll ask you: do you think there is any sense that we can bring unity into the arts around this thing of like, hey, we want to bring it back to being really applicable and being something that is practical, and push out some of that, delusions that are out there? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we can bring it back to that level?
I think if we get enough like-minded people, we can. It's one of the great things about jiu-jitsu that I love is, people will travel around. They'll put in the site in a BJJ group. I'm in, Stoke tonight, which is a good jiu-jitsu class to go to, and you'll get people go,
Nice.
"Oh, mate, go and visit blah blah," and they just go along. They train. Like when you visit another BJJ place, like it's very very rare they'll ask you for money. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just happy to have you there. They want to learn from you. They
Right
want
on.
to roll with you. They don't care if you're a white belt or a black belt. They're happy to have you there as a guest.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's very. But can you imagine doing that with Tai Chi? I can't.
No, and it's weird because I
Yeah.
think a lot of it has to do with as Damon mentioned, the art itself is so fragmented, from who has the true transmission, who has the real this, that, and the third. And everyone's trying to save themselves. It's like crabs in a barrel. It's like, oh, if I don't take it, someone else is going to grab it and I'm now going to have it.
Yeah.
And that goes in regards to, the people, and I know what Tom mentioned that some of the stuff we're talking about, he says you get the same stuff in the keto. You know what I mean? I think it's going back to that's not going to work in the streets and that kind of stuff. But they rely heavily on what they think they have in their wheelhouse, and that they have everything that they need to have, and no one else outside of that has it. And so they want to push everyone out so they can be the king of, as I mentioned last time, sometimes the king of shit, right? The shit pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing that we have to fight against is the folks. I think they're in fear of what they have to offer is not going to be enough, and so if they let someone else inside there, it's going to get taken away from them. What are your thoughts about that? And I know it's getting time to let you out of here. So
Yeah. I mean, Dan was guilty of it as much as any of it. Like with Tai Chi, you get the cult of personality. You get like, I am the only person that has the answers. I am the only person that has the real Tai Chi, and it's like, well, let's get away from that then. Let's meet up. Let's do pushing hands. Let's put some gloves on if you're willing. Let's see who's got the skills. I can't turn up to your class and do Chen style Tai Chi because I don't know the Chen form.
right,
I can't. If you've got different drills and exercises you can teach me, great. You can teach me that. You're a Yang stylist of the whatever lineage. I don't know that form. You're a Wu stylist. I don't know that form. But what we can do is we can do pushing hands. We can do sparring.
right,
You can teach me applications. You can show me a form, movement, do the application from it, and then we can drill that application. There's so much we can share amongst ourselves, and I don't. We really need to drop this whole. This is my teacher. This is he is God. No one
yes,
is better than this person. It's like he's old. Like I'm
yeah,
sorry, he's not going to throw me around because he's 76 years old. Like that's not going to happen. Like this idea that Tai Chi turns you into some sort of god.
right. Very true. This was so funny. It's like when people talk about lineage, and I have my own lineage, but I'm a representation of my lineage by what I do, because I can't be the other person. I can speak about maybe what their accolades, whether it's mythological or legend or not, but I still have to stand on my own and produce what I produce. And I think that's what the art is lacking. A lot of folks rely on these old, tales of greatness and think it represents them for what they do,
Yeah.
and not willing to stand up and show what they can do, and then present the art in a current, realistic, practical sense, so that it can still be viewed from that, and not reading about tales and of the invincible folks from the old days, if you will. So
Yeah, I just want to stop you there just a second,
yeah.
because while you're on that, that's a really important point. The same thing happens now at BJJ, though.
Oh,
People
okay.
are still living off of the reputation of the Gracies.
True.
Like it's like, well, yeah, in a real fight, and it's like, mate, you would not handle a real fight, because all you've ever done is butt scoot around a mat, like pulling guard on people. The first time someone punches you in the face, you're just gonna cry. Like,
Yeah.
there's just some killer jiu-jitsu people out there. Don't get me wrong, right? And of all of the sort of martial arts with belts and things, it's still probably the most decent level across the board is in jiu-jitsu, but
Sure.
they're not fighting anymore.
That's true.
And unless they're training those skill sets elsewhere, they don't know how to handle someone that's going to throw. There's so many videos of people who are like BJJ blue belts
Yeah.
and purple belts, and already, they're going for a takedown on someone in the street. They don't get it, and they're just
Yeah.
kind of hanging on to them while the person's just battering them on the back of the head. If you haven't got plan B, what's the point of your jiu-jitsu? So you can see how it happens. The older a style gets, and the less people actually fight, the more you get into this living off of the legend of the founders.
Yeah, I have I have a training partner that he came a couple weeks ago. I posted a couple videos of us. Probably going to do some more. And he's a chin stylist, and we trained together for years. Like at least close to 20 some years, 15, 20 years that we kind of trained together. I've shown some stuff from the Yang perspective, but he's been doing BJJ for about 2 or 3 years now. And the reason why he came, he goes, yeah, I want to work on some push in stuff, but also I really want to work on doing some takedown and takedown defenses, because we really just pretty much just start on the mat. So it kind of goes back
Yeah.
to your point just mentioned there. They don't really take the opportunity to work on the, I guess more of the practical side of things, where before you get down there, there's some things that may happen.
Yeah. And a lot of that's due to class sizes. You can't be, if you've got 20, 30 people on the mat, you can't be doing shoulder throws on people. You're going to get flanked.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, I am going to have to go.
Like
I've got
that's
someone
okay.
from work trying to contact
No
me,
worries,
so
man.
I've got to
Like
sort that out. All right, but it's been great. We'll have to do it again at some point.
definitely, man. We always have
Yeah.
so much to talk about. I really appreciate your time, and sorry for the delay. And you have a great day, and we'll keep in contact for the next one, man.
Yeah.
All right.
And before I go, Tom, I would rather die than let you wrist lock me. It's never happening ever.
Right.
Right,
I know, big fat life. Hey, Tom, I gotta talk to you sometime soon too, sir. All right. All right. Thanks, Alan, man. You take care, man.
Yeah. Well, you too. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.